Welcome to The Explainer. We love digging into these huge foundational stories and breaking them down. And today, we're looking at one of the biggest, the life of Jesus Christ. We're going to trace the whole narrative, just as it's laid out in the source material. So, how does a story like this even begin? Well, it's not with some huge, flashy entrance onto the world stage. Nope. It's all about these really quiet beginnings, which then lead to some incredibly profound teachings, and ultimately, a conclusion that, well, changes everything. All right, so let's start with chapter 1, A Quiet Beginning. We're talking about those formative years in Nazareth. And this part of the story is so important because it all starts in this really quiet, unassuming town. It's where the foundation for absolutely everything to come was carefully laid. So for 30 years, his life was, well, pretty normal on the outside. Quiet, unassuming. The sources paint this picture of someone who's just deeply connected to the natural world around him. You can almost imagine it, right? A time spent just building up physical, mental, and spiritual strength, way away from all the noise and chaos of the big cities. But even back then, as just a kid visiting the temple, you get this little hint of something much bigger going on. He asks this one question to his mother, and boom, it basically sets the keynote for his entire life. It's this first little signal that his real focus, his true business, was the mission he came to accomplish. Okay, section 2, the public ministry. This is where things really kick off. So how do we get from that quiet foundation to this massive public work? Well, it all starts with his baptism. The Holy Spirit comes upon him, and that's it. That's the starting gun for a ministry that's going to last for just 3 super intense years. And his method was just so personal. Think about it. He didn't stand up on a stage like some distant professor. He walked with people. He literally just said, "Follow me," and they did. They learned by doing, by living alongside him. And what's really fascinating is that he actually spent more time healing and talking to people one-on-one than he did giving big sermons to huge crowds. I mean, look at these points. They really paint a picture, don't they? This was a ministry built on just being with people, being accessible. He'd use really simple, everyday things, birds, flowers, seeds, to explain these huge spiritual truths. But then on the flip side, he'd often spend entire nights alone, just in prayer, recharging and connecting with his Father before heading right back out at sunrise. All right, on to part 3, teachings and parables. And let me tell you, his teachings were a complete game changer. I mean, they were nothing short of revolutionary for the time. This wasn't just about offering a few new ideas. This was a direct challenge to the entire religious establishment. He was presenting a totally new way of thinking about God and what it means to be a good person. And this comparison here just nails it. You see, he used this parable about new wine and old wineskins. The idea is simple, right? You can't put new, expanding wine into old, brittle leather. It'll just burst. And he was saying his teachings, this living, breathing truth, was like that new wine. It just couldn't be forced into the old, rigid, dried-up traditions of the Pharisees. A heart that's all about ceremonies on the outside just doesn't have room for the new life he was offering. So what's the big takeaway here? It's that just hearing the words wasn't enough, not even close. True greatness, according to him, had nothing to do with your status or power. It was all about service, about actually doing what he said. Building your life on his words, that was like building a house on solid rock. It could handle anything. Building it on anything else, well, that was like building on sand.
You know what happens next.
So, part 4, the shadow of the cross. Well, as you can probably guess, this radical new way of thinking wasn't exactly popular with everyone. I mean, here he is, prioritizing love over empty rituals and humility over power. And the religious leaders, they saw their influence, their control, just slipping away. And that inevitably led to some really intense opposition. And this wasn't an overnight thing. The conflict just kept growing, little by little. But the real boiling point, the moment everything changed, was when he raised Lazarus from the dead. I mean, think about it. Here's this incredible miracle done right out in the open where everyone could see it. They couldn't deny it. They couldn't explain it away. And for them, that was it. That was the final straw, an undeniable threat to their entire system. So what happens? The high priest, a guy named Caiaphas, basically stands up and says, "We have to get rid of him." And you can see his logic, right? For him, it wasn't even a religious argument anymore. It was pure politics. He's thinking, it's better for us to sacrifice this one man than to risk the whole nation and our own power being destroyed. It was a cold political calculation. And that brings us to section 5, the ultimate sacrifice. The whole plot comes to a head during Passover week in Jerusalem, and what follows is just this intense series of events, all centered around unimaginable agony and sacrifice. The source material is really clear that the agony started long before his arrest. In the Garden of Gethsemane, he was completely alone, and it's described as him facing the weight of all the world's sin, just crushing down on him. His human side was just overwhelmed by this deep, mysterious dread. It's like this massive internal battle was the prelude to the physical one that was about to happen. And then, he's nailed to the cross. And what are his first words? Think about that. It's not a curse. It's not a cry for revenge. It's a prayer. A prayer for the very people who put him there. A prayer for forgiveness that, according to the text, extends to every single person from the beginning of time to the very end. And as he's hanging there, the strange, supernatural darkness just covers everything. It lasted for 3 hours. The sources describe it almost like the earth itself was in mourning. It's this powerful image, right? As if nature itself couldn't bear to watch, with the sun literally refusing to shine on what was happening. And then, just as suddenly as it came, the darkness lifts. A light surrounds the cross, and he cries out one last time with this incredibly clear, strong voice. And then he's gone. The sources make a really important point here. He didn't die the slow, agonizing death of a typical crucifixion victim. He died from a heart that was quite literally broken by the weight of it all. But that's not the end of the story. Not by a long shot. This brings us to part 6, victory over the grave. Because everything is about to shift, dramatically, from what looks like total defeat to the incredible light of the resurrection. So for 3 days, he rested in the tomb, and the source material points out this really powerful parallel. Remember how God rested on the 7th day after creating the world? Well, in the same way, Jesus was now resting from his finished work of redeeming it. The job was done. Then, Sunday morning comes. An earthquake shakes the ground. A powerful angel comes down from heaven, rolls away that massive stone like it's nothing, and just sits on it. And when the women show up to anoint the body, he asks them this incredible question. He is not here, for he is risen, as he said. And with that, Christ emerges from the tomb, glorified. He beat death. He beat the grave. And he did it, the sources say, through the divine life that was part of his very being, a life that wasn't borrowed from anywhere, but was his from the very beginning. So, this is the ultimate proof, right? He had already declared, I am the resurrection and the life, and now here he was, proving it. Those are words, the source explains, that only God could say. And walking out of that grave was the ultimate, undeniable demonstration of that divine power. And before he leaves for good, before ascending to heaven, he gives his disciples their mission. And it's so important to see this not as an ending, but as a beginning. It's this great commission to go out and share this incredible message of hope with the entire world. A message that's built on 2 unshakable pillars, a sacrifice that was finished and a tomb that was empty.